being here. The exhibition, Change is God, Root Among the Stars, Black Abstraction in the Midwest. This is the lovely group of artists. I'm Gregory Rose, I'm the curator. I'm going to just introduce myself, go through a few things, and then I'm just going to have the artists take the floor, introduce themselves, respond, talk, and then hopefully we can answer some questions for you all. Again, I'm the curator, Gregory J. Rose. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the support. Thank you for coming out for the artists. Artists, what I would like you all to talk about, if you could. We've covered a lot in the news. We've covered a lot in the artist platforms in the community. But what I'm interested in from you all is, has your idea of Blackness and Black abstraction changed, shifted, remained the same? And how do you feel about your ability or the opportunity to take the risk that I hope that this exhibition allows you to do? So I don't care who goes first, second, or third, but if you can just introduce yourselves and geographically where you're from, and then, yeah, just share with the audience.
So I'm Barber. Nice to see you all. I'm living in Chicago right now, but I consider the Midwest my base. There's a lot. So as far as impact and feeling expansive, I feel the same way about it, but I feel more comfortable with it, to know that there's other artists out there. I mean, I always knew that there's other artists out there practicing Black abstraction or abstract Black artists, whatever like that. But to be in a show that's centered around abstract is not something you get very often, and also to be a part of that makes me feel more comfortable in my pursuit. So my view has remained the same, but yeah, I feel like there's a community that's tangible.
And what about the risk part? Did you feel you got to take a risk? Do you feel you'll take more risk? And I guess I should offer up some more information. Some of the feedback I got from some of you all and some other artists who now, like, oh, I should apply, you know, they would do it differently. Maybe they would present their painting differently, or they would present their quill or their ceramics differently. Are any of you going through any of that? Are you going through any of that? Or were you just happy to just have the experience?
I think I was just happy to do it.
Because that's fair.
To be part of a show that's dedicated to abstract in the Midwest, it was so specific and it fit me like a button. So I was purely happy about that, to be a part of it. As far as risk taking, I think it's very risky within itself just to be an artist, yet alone an abstract artist, because the audience tend to believe that they don't have the vocabulary to digest what we do, but you feel it like you can feel a good song, you can feel a good visual piece of work, and so that's the risky part. But I've been taking that risk for the last some odd years. So
Thank you, Barbara. Who wants to go next? Who wants to jump in?
I'll go next. I'm Christopher Harrison. I'm an artist whose studio and practice is in northeast Minneapolis, originally from Ohio. My practice, I kind of bounce back and forth. Sometimes I do figurative stuff, sometimes I do abstract stuff, sometimes I do semi-abstract stuff, but in my heart, I'm an abstract artist. So as far as risk goes, being true to yourself is never a risk. You do what you do because that's what you do. So I really didn't see this as a risk. I actually saw it more as a celebration, because as artists, that's what we do. We celebrate ourselves and share it with others, right? So for me, this was a joyful thing. So, you know, and it's even more joyful to be paired with like-minded people, you know, like-minded souls, you know what I'm saying? Especially here in the Midwest, because, you know, as Barber said, you know, being an artist in itself is a risk, or considered a risk in society. Because they're like, oh, you're gonna be broke, you're just sitting there doodling around like a kid or something, you expect people to give you money, you know? And it's just kind of like, really? No, it's a lot more than that. It's about expression, it's about voice, it's about, you know, people connecting with, you know, other ideas and thoughts and emotions. That's what art does. And, you know, and it can also change people's lives too. Art can change people's lives. You know, so it's a very important aspect of life to be able to have an opportunity to do that, because not everybody has that courage.
So that's where I was asking about the risk, because, right, the show also has the reference of Octavia Butler, right, in Earthseed, right, and so part of that whole idea and story and literature and art basis is like we're pioneers, right? Like we're out, like you said, we're in the Midwest, which is not the coast.
Right.
So, but it's like,
Or you're Paris,
right, you know, and so, like you said, I'm glad you all see it as a celebration, but I guess for me, I feel you all are risk takers, even though you have this confidence, because this is new territory. This isn't territory that's usually explored or talked about, not because it's not done. I just think sometimes inadvertently, right, we just talk about California and New York. And that's just what we do, like LA and New York, right?
Yeah, flyover country. Yeah, that's a flyover country,
right? But we're realizing there's a difference here, right? There's a nuance, right? Will you all agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And to that point, I think, you know, you know, just the opportunity to be able to do that and being seen, I think is a key thing that you know, wanted to do. And, you know, like I was telling some other people, you know, we went on a residency to Senegal, Africa, and that kind of helped, you know, kind of spur your idea to, you know, kind of bring that community together, you know. And I think that's important that we, you know, kind of, for the most part, we all share that heritage, you know, of Africa and all the things that come with that, you know. And being able to, you know, speak a language, you know, hopefully through all the pieces are different, there's still some thread there. And, you know, to be able to see that and pick that out, I think that's really important.
Okay, great.
I really enjoy what you're saying, Chris, about the work of abstraction being like really a celebration, you know, because I feel like I'm kind of at the beginning of that journey. My name's Stephanie. I'm originally from Los Angeles and live here now in Minneapolis. And yeah, I feel like I'm at the beginning of that journey, so I'm really grateful to meet this cohort now and be a part of this show, because it has felt really risky for me personally. I think a lot of my work, looking back, has really been driven by concepts, driven by ideas, and I think like with the invitation of the show, it was kind of like an invitation to maybe like dig into my pleasure or dig into my emotions, dig into that celebration of self, and take risks that I have been afraid to take. So I'm very grateful to be with you all today.
Yeah, I'd like to echo a lot of the sentiments that were just said. My name is Erica Littlejohn. I'm a Chicago-based artist, but I'm from Oakland, California. And I started working in an abstract way because it felt kind of like a way to talk about personal themes, but also protect myself, because I wasn't giving everything away in such a, in such a clear way. And then I realized, like kind of through this show and just getting a little bit older and more mature in my art practice, that working abstractly is also a way to kind of invite other people in and allow them to like bring their interpretations or their lived experiences to the work in a way that might not be able to like be expressed, or it might be a little bit more hindered if something were to be a little bit more didactic. And I found that it's a really wonderful way of celebrating and creating community, because you're not necessarily trying to speak for a large group of people, but rather it's an invitation or an opening of a door, or like a threshold for a conversation.
Yes, I love that word, invitation. I feel like that has been my access point to working abstractly. I'm Alex Beaumont. I'm a textile artist. I live here in Minneapolis and work out of Northeast Minneapolis. And being able to focus on motif and material and the materiality and process of the making the work, as opposed to representative image or text, was very liberating. It feels expansive, and I think it does allow for other people with many, many different stories or reference points to approach the work and connect with it. And so that's been really beautiful. And to frame that and to structure the show around like what's happening here in the Midwest, you know, is really, really was very exciting to me when I saw that, because you know, I feel I'm kind of newish to Minneapolis, and to have an opportunity to connect with this community and people who are making work, thinking about it in a similar way, and you know, Black people. I love it. Thank you.
I'll go next. Sarah, she, her. It's cool. I felt like, yeah, invitation was the word that kind of cued me to want to speak as well, because I'm not known as a visual artist, and so I felt really afraid, honestly triggered by my friend who sent me the invitation. And like, you know, after George Floyd, now you want me to talk about my feelings, you know, I didn't want to open it. I didn't open it for a couple of weeks, and then when I read the description, I felt like, what an invitation for me to do something different. And even when I applied, I didn't send in abstract. I didn't even know what abstraction meant. So I sent in like photos that I've taken with photography, and I'm really grateful that I was still given a chance to like learn what it's like as someone who normally is on stage giving people the ideas that they get to take in, or DJing, curating the space for them to be in, or shooting photos, showing them what to see, to have to sit with my feelings and let that space be there where I don't get to decide what somebody sees and takes, and like that I'm okay with it, even if they don't understand it, even if they don't buy it. And I wanted the process to be really beautiful, because I've taken Butler and dreams, and then like what came up for me was grief. And I was pissed. I'm like, God, you know, I just want to do something like creative and like dreams for Afrofuturism, but it's like if we can't break down the science of how we do heal, how we do come together, how we sit with the discomfort, then like, you know, that is a part of the story. So I felt like as someone who studies people in groups and studies how to make people feel things, and also a study of the nervous system for the past 7 to 10 years, I just played around with like being weird. And I love it. So I hope to do more.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to be able to like be with y'all. I was very intimidated, but I felt really, really grateful to be able to be out there and speaking a language that I've always known and never understood was ours is our people's first.
Well said. Thank you, Sarah.
I'll go. My name is Marcus. I use he, him pronouns. And that's my piece right there. It's a direct response to the uprising that happened in Minneapolis. The title shoved in their mouth. And it's just a way to show Blackness unapologetically and powerfully. And it just felt like not applying for the show was a risk. Like I had to do it. It felt like drawn to it. I think all of us being here, kismet, and yeah, just a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think I really resonated with what you were saying, Erica, about like kind of a protection of our feelings and like a certain opacity of what we want to share. And it's been, yes, very validating to have the invitation to be a part of that with you all. I'm really thankful for. And I think for me, you know, in the past, you know, I come from like a dance background, and the body has always been really important to me with my work, and like, and also I think my paintings in the past have kind of been these like mapping of sensations in the body that become abstract, and it's been really hard for me to like let go of the body. And I think for me that's the risk in this abstraction, is like letting go of the body, but the body for me is still there. And so it's like, I think I'm still naming that and like grappling with it a little bit, but there's such a weight that's lifted, and being able to go in that direction of like, what is it to be grounded in a body and have sensations in a body, but also be liberated from the body, and you know, exist and have, like, what is outside of our bodies, you know, like, and what does that look like? How can we follow that? And I'm also like thinking a lot about time too, and how abstract time is, but how like in this moment with you know, like Black representational art, it's like a snapshot of this is who we are in this moment. And so like I've been exploring Sankofa a lot, of this like looking back with knowledge of the past and moving forward and like transforming, and what is that energy? So I think those are some of the things on my mind, and some of the space that I feel shared with you all.
Let's see, that's what I'm talking about. Well, what's interesting, and if y'all don't mind, I'll take it aside real quick before we have questions. Folks have been asking me that particular point more than anything of all of this, and that is our connection and the disconnection to the body. And I've been toiling, because I'm like, I'm not the authority. I just like lucked out, and we came together, right? Everyone came with the invitation. The family's home, right? Y'all welcome, y'all at the table. But like, can you all just, as brief as we can, just like, just touch on that idea of the body and abstraction, how much they do or do not see. Because I think our audience is wondering about that. Like, why the body? Why can't we get past the body? Why is that so important? Why do we always start there?
I think about when you said that, because I started as a figurative painter too, and I still feel like my work is very figurative actually. But what kind of gave me permission to hold both spaces was reading about this artist Clifford Steele, and he says all of his paintings are figurative, and it's not, it doesn't look like that at all. And then I combine that with, you know, Pollock's abstract. It's about the body, it's about what the body's doing, and it's responding to that. So I think it's always there because it's a part of us. What I'm interested in that space outside of the body though, because I feel like that's a deep colonized space. And I feel like the body has been colonized to the point where I may be a bit pessimistic, but I don't think it's salvageable. I think it's a done deal. And not even in so many ways, like gender, race, sexism, you know, attraction, you know, it's loaded. And what I pull from, we talked about, you mentioned Afrofuturism. What I like about Afrofuturism is that this other space, right? This hunger for this space that's where you can be free. That's some things I don't like about that, but the goal is just to be in a space that's not colonized by anything. And so with my work, it starts from the body, but I try to push it to personality. I try to push it to this other space so that like you said earlier, people can find their own reference points to this particular body or to this personality or to this material. So the body is still there in my work, but it's just not the focal point, because I think if we stay there, we're not pushing, we're not educating the public, we're not educating society to move beyond it.
Yeah, I think like so many conversations about what it means to be Black start and stop with the body. And I think that so much of Blackness has been reduced to the physicality of like visually being a Black body. And that like there's obviously so many like deep and important conversations that come with that, but I think then it flattens what the Black experience is to all different kinds of people. And I'm really interested in kind of like the remnants of Black physicality in terms of like a quilt, for example, being like a physical artifact of like a Black person's presence, and like it is like their material manifestation of themselves in some way. And I'm interested in kind of like what it means to explore Blackness in a liminal and non like, I think that like everything is associated with the body inherently when it comes to art. So like what does it mean to kind of put that aside and think about all the other aspects of Black identity and how that is like transmutable, depending on like perspective that you think about it with. I don't know if that made any sense.
I think so. I'm just gonna make that connection, like how we talked about, we always talking about the coast. But I feel like that space where you're referring to is untapped. There's a lot of space to explore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I appreciate the Midwest. That's why I wanted to be based in the Midwest and consider myself a Midwest artist, because I feel like the conversations here are fresh, and we have, because it doesn't have a personality yet per se, like we can dictate that. Like we can like say who we are and what we're about. And yeah, so yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for me, I kind of see it as a reverberation, you know? It's kind of like a reflection, you know? The mirror might be kind of broken, but you can still bring an image out, you know? Because, you know, with the Black body, I mean, throughout the history of civilization, we kind of had a tough time, you know? Because of, you know, colonization and even destruction of ourselves, you know, because of, you know, many factors. But I think, you know, with my work, I kind of want to use history as, you know, kind of as a key to kind of help unlock those, you know, prejudices that we have, and then, you know, put it in a way that's not as obvious, you know, as, you know, oh, I'm going to put this, you know, Black person here or whatever, you know, kind of go beyond that, so kind of we can reach more of the concept. And you can do that through abstraction, whether it's color or line or whatever, you know, to kind of tell that story in a way that's a little deeper. So, because in my piece, in Diasporal Mind, I thought about, you know, the ideas of, you know, people who came from the same base, who went to different places, but still share some thread of, you know, heritage or something that still brings them together, and that kind of helps them build their identity. So all those different pieces, even though they're separate, they're still together because of, you know, what they've been through and where they've come from. So it's kind of like a remix, you know. So I kind of, you know, which, you know, is a concept that came out of the, you know, kind of Black and Latino community, you know, and now it's, you know, kind of pretty much a part of our lives now, you know, bringing things together, whether it's jazz or hip hop or you know, whatever, even in artwork, you know, collage, you know, all those things, pieces that come together to make something different, you know. So that kind of, you know, that kind of idea of, even though you use separate pieces to bring things together, I mean, now that I think about it, that's what America's about, isn't it? All these different things come together to make this country. You know, democracy, that's what it's really about. And I think, you know, abstraction has as a way of being democratic as well. So maybe that can make, you know, our black bodies or any bodies, you know, a little more democratic. You know? So, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying.
You were there.
There's this oddly intense phrase on the gymnasium at my son's elementary school that says, if you don't take care of your body, where will you live? I'm like, damn, that's existential. But it's true, like we can't separate ourselves from you know, these like meat robots that we operate. We can't be just flowing souls orbs. Existing in this world outside of our bodies. So for everything that is projected, as Barber was saying, that's projected upon our bodies, we can't escape them. And I was thinking a lot when I was making my work, you know, how do I access truth, and how do I convey truth when I'm not like just spilling it out there for folks through images or through words. And it all came back to how I felt and what I was using when I was making the work. So like these particular motifs like hit me here, you know, it like activates the feeling of intuition, you know, the sorrel dye, the hibiscus sorrel, not the like Minnesota sorrel. I just want to clarify that. Like the Jamaican hibiscus tea sorrel that I was using to like paint with, like when I smelled that, I was with my grandparents again, you know, like it hit me here. And so feeling in my body that authenticity when I was making the work, I was like, oh, I think this is going to translate when somebody else sees this, when someone experiences it. So you can't escape our bodies.
I think kind of just off of your point, I think that sometimes working in an abstract mode, while conceptually could be a little bit of a protection, let's say, it also is one of the most intimate ways and like physically revealing ways of working, which is quite interesting because it's conceivable that someone might represent a representational image in a similar way to another person, but working abstractly is so of you and like the way that your mind works and the way, if you're like using a hand process, like the way that your body works. And so to like be able to, I guess, feel vulnerable and confident enough to share that with other people, I think is something that's really beautiful about this show, because I think that if this work is kind of for you, it really hits you in a very emotional way, like you're talking about. And I think it's something that's like distinctly unique about a show like this and why I feel so happy to like participate and be able to partake in that.
I mean, I think that begs the question of like, you're putting a lot of onus on the viewer, right? Like, if we show them a pretty bike, we're going to come here and say, well, that's a great rendering of a bike. If you give the viewers abstract, you're forcing them to connect to this piece in a very emotional way. So like, I'm curious about, is that a risk for you? Like because if they don't want to go on the inside and explore their own personal thoughts, then that painting sucked. It was stupid. Right? Like, so like you took a big risk by like putting on this like, you know, yeah. So how, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, well, like you all said, like, so I got here in 2001. So I've been doing this for a long time. So for me, it wasn't a risk, like you all said, like I'm really sincere. That was an invitation for y'all to come home. This is what we did, y'all. Like we have all these, like, I mean, we got Jamaica, we got like Scandinavia, right? We got like Mexico. My wife's Mexican, so my baby's Afro-Mexican. Afro-Mexican. Like, so we got all these stories, and like you said, bits and pieces. That's been a part of our history for a long time. So it wasn't a risk. I think for me it was more like you all said, a celebration, and I already knew what was coming other than what you all have just articulated to me in the audience, and that is with all the complex layers and nuances and new ideas that are coming to me, that just with the experience with you all allowing us into your brains and your processes and your stories and ideas is we're home, y'all. We got a family now. Like, we can come to the table whenever we want now. We're not alone. But guess what? Like y'all said, but we're free to kind of, now you move the conversation. We can form however. So I'm excited. Like, I'm like, oh yeah. So pizza does not have to be pizza, right? I'm good with that.
You know, if I can press a little bit more,
Yeah.
were you concerned about how the show would be received? I think that's what I'm trying to.
Okay, that's I was concerned to the degree that I wasn't sure what the broader audience would be able to handle. Because as you all just articulated, Chris, you kind of hit the nail on the head, like, there's a lot of blackness around y'all, like, I'm black, it's okay. It's all right, like, it's comfortable, it's fresh, it's new, it's the remix, it's the history, it's the taste, it's the smells, and there's nothing to be scared of. But I think everyone, including us, feel more comfortable, more at home, more understanding, more universal on the same level when it's not on such a pretentious, contentious level. Like you said, the playing field is, the only thing they're bringing is what they brought. I didn't put anything onto that. So they go like over there. That really wasn't on me, like, you know. I'm glad they feel free to do that, but we all know from our experiences and, you know, kind of where we're at right now. Like, you know, I'm kind of thinking, you guys, I'm thinking about my next move, and I kind of want to deal with what Kendrick just put out, because I feel it's time that as a black man, I give an example of how you don't focus on the trauma, but you embrace it, you love it, you nurture it, you understand it, so you can finally move on. And like you all said, a lot of this, they don't allow us to move on. Like we go out like, but the body. Okay, we can start there again, but you know, like, we talk about the texture or the color or the smell or the sound or the feeling. Like, I just think folks forget within a lot of the conversations that, guess what, this is just really a lot about being human.
Well, see, that's what makes me, okay, I sit back with body conversation because I work with bodies and my focus is bodies. And all of our perspectives of what we see, smell, feel, and experience in the future are going to be from our bodies passed on to future bodies. So I think bodies, it's so hard to take bodies out. My piece is like the bodiest piece. So I own up to it. Literal body. But I come from a history where my body, I'm not in my 20s or 30s, even like in my 40s, where I haven't seen black women have ownership of their bodies. Period. And like even doing something like that, I got feedback like, are you afraid? Should you have a warning? You know, like people aren't comfortable with me being a black woman with a body that I consider sexy, but I'm not twerking. I'm not like being sexual, like I'm just using my body to talk about an actual really heavy experience that I healed through. I didn't say stuck in it, because I've studied how to move things through my body and take it out of my body and experience what it's like to be in the absence of. Like, take up enough space in it, reclaim it, have pleasure in it, like so much pleasure in it, eat all the things, breathe, cry, feel, and then create from the space that's like the alchemy outside of that. And I feel like we all need spokes, where not all of us are focused on the body.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to be like the one in the corner that's like, what the body?
But that's why I'm so excited for you, because you literally put the body, and folks have to put the bodies right there. I'm like, yeah, but it's abstract.
And it's not even about the body
Yeah,
at
no,
all, but like I didn't know how to express it if I couldn't use words and use my normal things. I just like had to use my body, let go of whatever's been projected around like the body being like not necessarily wanted in an abstract space. So I'm down to be the abstract.
Well, I think I think you have to own that space, because I think that's, you hit the nail on the head. Like, no one's going to find that in the book. We haven't dealt with that. Like you said, like respecting, protecting, hearing, listening, and then supporting the female black body, and however that, because I ain't having them without my mom. So like, we gotta go right back to like that body, right? Like, so that though is very abstract for folks because that experience is not written down, that's past.
What if that's abstract for me to like show my daughters who are like, you're gonna project that? You know, they're used to me being the way I am, but for me to feel confident in what was coming up for me, even as I'm like, I don't know, why am I feeling all this guilt and shame and like things around my own freaking work, you know, like, and just having to sit with that and look them in the eyes and be like, this is for the future of our lives. Like, this is like, I'm gonna be uncomfortable and y'all are gonna see me as I am. And, you know, my kids are just like, cool, next, you know. You don't really care.
Right, and when you say, Sarah, that also helps in creating an agreement between your work and the viewer, creating an agreement that, okay, you know, I see it, you know, and I know, and now I know it, and now maybe not you can heal, but also the viewer can heal.
I also think that there's something really like audacious in using the body in an abstract way because there are so many like assumptions and like projections that are put on to particularly the body of the Black woman. And so to say I'm using something that's been interpreted literally without my permission historically, and I'm using it in a way that I've deemed to be like upending all of that is really important, and I think that it's like something like it needs to be in conversation with other works that are maybe about the body we don't see it, because together it broadens the interpretation of like how our bodies are used and how we want to represent them.
So before I open it up for questions, I'll close down our discussion going back to what you asked me. So that's what I was expecting, was this contradiction, this friction, this tension, these open questions, the work that we all expect our audience to do. And just so you all know, yes, we expect the work, but I was taught, and I teach my students, to assume your audience is smarter than you are. So don't think that's in the vein of you can't do it, or you're less, or you don't have the ability to. It's just a simple fact of a lot of us don't give ourselves the space to do it. There's always a reason why, like, that's just too hard. So I can't do that right now. And sometimes when you're in the front of work like this, it is the now. Like, that's what we're doing. Putting it in front of you, and you have a choice.